All right, so we are improvising tonight. We are in a slightly different location. I'm out here at the Western headquarters, and we are going to do tonight's PDN Live through Facebook Live. We were having some technical difficulties with our normal apparatus through the Google chat and through YouTube, so here we are. And we are going to, I'll be bouncing back and forth between the computer and right here on the phone, I've got the Facebook Live going, but I'm going to be getting my questions fed to me instead of through Shannon. Normally you see her online with us here, actually feeding me the questions and we interact a little bit. We're not going to be able to do that tonight. So I will just really mainly be going through the actual questions themselves. Of course, we're here for Personal Defense Network. I am the Executive Director of Personal Defense Network, and you can go to personaldefensenetwork.com anytime and see hundreds of free videos and articles by not only myself, but also some of the other combat-focused shooting instructor teams and experts in their field who aren't necessarily aligned with exactly what I teach under ICE training or the CFS program. We've got a lot of different people that have participated over the years, some people who teach some things very different from what we teach inside of the CFS program, and other people who are very closely aligned. But some of the people that have been contributors over the years, people like Tom Gibbons, Marty Hayes, of course Grant Cunningham, who runs the Training Talk live show every Thursday. That's coming up in just a couple of days this week. It's 2 Thursdays a month. I believe it's the first and third. And then we had Mike Seeklander in there, Caleb Causey with some of his medical information, and lots of other contributors over the years. So check out personaldefensenetwork.com. Of course, you can subscribe to our free newsletter, The Wire, and get information sent to you about new videos and articles that are posted, as well as some other special offers. You can become a premium member or even upgrade all the way up to a gold membership, and the gold membership offers some discounts for things like our online classes, our distance education programs, some of our downloads, and other things inside of the store. Premium members, of course, get to see a lot more than our standard members do. Another set of scores and hundreds of other articles and videos that are there. And there's 93 pages, and I think there's about 8 to 10 videos or articles posted on each page, and there's 93 pages the last time I looked, and maybe up to 94 now at personaldefensenetwork.com, with the majority of those being free articles and videos on a variety of self-defense topics. So tonight's Personal Defense Network Live, PDN Live show is a Ask Rob Anything about self-defense, home security, family defense, things like that, defensive shooting skill development. And I know we have a lot of questions. Every time we open it up to anything, we seem to get about 2 or 3 times the amount of questions we do in any specific topic. And that makes sense because, of course, you, as the PDN audience, are a broad and diverse group. You have a lot of different interests, and anytime we open the floor up, we're more likely to get something that you have on your mind into the show. Appreciate you being here. So the first question I'm reading over here is I'm new to EDC / personal defense. EDC is, I'm assuming, everyday carry. So this is someone who's new to either having a concealed carry permit or is just now exercising their right to carry. So everyday carry / personal defense. I see a lot of people using flashlights. What are the best reasons to carry one as opposing to using the one on your cell phone? Well, right away, I'm going to say the best reason to carry a separate flashlight is going to be ease of use. I know for me, turning on the flashlight on my cell phone is going to be a 2-step process, at least a 2-handed process. There's maybe you have to enter your code, or you have to flip up, or you have to hit that little button. It's more of a fine motor skill. It's probably going to take some visual reference, where as opposed to a good flashlight, a quote-unquote tactical flashlight, a flashlight that's good for personal defense, you should be able to grab it with preferably your offhand, not your primary hand, where you're going to be using to access a defensive tool, maybe to control someone, whatever else you may be doing. The finer motor skills, the more defensive, tactical-oriented skills with your primary hand, your secondary hand, your support hand should be able to very easily get to that flashlight and turn it on. The other thing is obvious that the flashlight that's purpose-built is probably going to be a little bit more rugged than your cell phone. It's probably going to have, it's going to be brighter. It's going to certainly be able to project its beam over a further distance if you're using it to try to find or identify threats or find your family members. If you're using it to disorient an attacker, to distract an attacker, you're going to want that brighter flashlight also. The other nice thing about a good flashlight is you're going to be able to use it as an impact device. So it's going to be able to be a defensive tool as well as just the illumination device. So definitely a big fan of carrying a flashlight. In fact, I would say, flashlight would be something that anyone should carry, whether it's attached to your keychain or it's in a jacket pocket or in your purse, in your diaper bag, whatever it is you're carrying around every day. Flashlight's probably a really good thing to have, stage one in your vehicle, one in every room in the house, one in the pockets of your coat, and maybe wear one on your belt, or like I said, carry it in your pocket around all the time, even before you start thinking about what defensive tools you're going to carry, the knife, the gun, all those other things. The flashlight's kind of like that multi-tool. It's just easy to use and very convenient and useful in a whole bunch of situations other than just personal defense. So next question we've got is from a guy named Gary. And Gary says, I know this varies state to state, but what information should we volunteer about being armed when we are stopped for a traffic violation? Great question, Gary. It does vary from state to state. Of course, the important thing to remember is wherever you're carrying a firearm, you need to know the laws for your jurisdiction, for that jurisdiction. When you're traveling with a firearm, that may mean doing some research. I always recommend going to a website that ends in .gov or with the state or the county that you're going to be interested in, the city that you're going to be interested in. Go to a government website to be double, triple sure, especially if the laws are more strict. If you're going to someplace with more lenient laws, more kind of friendly to firearms and people who are carrying firearms every day, then it may not be as important. But certainly if you're going someplace that's stricter in their regulation of firearms and our rights and our freedoms when it comes to firearms and carrying them in public or in our vehicles, it's probably going to be important to know exactly what the website says from their government, maybe their Attorney General's office or some of the other, maybe the State Department of Safety or the Department of the Highway Troopers, things like that. You can print that out and then have that with you inside of your vehicle or maybe shrunken down and carry that in a jacket pocket so that you can use that to reference as you travel on a road trip, something like that during the summer. So what I would suggest is that you do that research and if you are required by law to notify at any interaction with law enforcement that you have a concealed carry permit and of course that you're legally carrying. I don't recommend that you illegally carry for a whole bunch of different reasons. So if you're required by law to notify the police officer, then certainly I recommend that you do that. I personally think it's a good idea to notify the police officer just about on all occasions that you do have a firearm if it's within reach, if it's on your body, if it's something that they may see when you turn a certain way, if you have no idea why they're contacting you, if the next thing they do is give you an order to keep your hands where they can see you, if they request to pat you down for some reason, maybe they think you're a perpetrator of a crime, they feel like you may be a threat to them or someone else, and if it's just a case of mistaken identity or something like that because of your vehicle description, your personal description, your clothing description, you don't want to escalate that by having them think that you are trying to hide a lethal defensive tool. So I'm a big fan of notifying police officers in just about every occasion. It used to be much less common, remember, for people to carry concealed, and we still have a lot of people in the industry who are teaching or giving out advice based on the way it was in the 90s or even the 80s when an incredibly smaller number of people had concealed carry permits. Back then, 20, 30 years ago, there were very few states that had shall issue laws, and of course not every state had even some version of a concealed carry law. And now every state and the Washington, D.C. area have a means for people to get a concealed carry permit one way or the other in the state. Most of them are shall issue. So there are now millions and millions and millions more people carrying concealed or carrying openly or carrying in their vehicles or staging firearms even in their home for personal defense. And law enforcement is much more trained than they used to be to deal with that. And it's not nearly as big a deal as maybe it was 20 years ago for you to tell an officer, yes, I'm carrying a gun. It's much, much more common. Of course, again, certain areas of the country it's going to be even more common and not a big deal. I find that most of the time talking to police officers, they're more interested, if at all interested in conversations about the firearm. They're interested in what you're carrying because they happen to be one of those police officers that are firearms fans. They're into firearms beyond just as a job for their tool. So they might be curious and just ask you what you're carrying and why you carry that or have a conversation about guns with you. So it's a good way to interact in a positive way, I think, with most law enforcement officers. The next thing we have here, and by the way, we're working on a class, it may even be out before Christmas, if not it'll be right after the first of the year, on interactions with law enforcement while armed. We have a DVD that we've produced on interactions with law enforcement while armed, and now a class that we're getting ready to release as part of our distance education packages at Personal Defense Network. It's a really important topic, and of course, interacting with law enforcement inappropriately while armed could lead to some very serious tragedies. Whether you've been in a shooting incident or, as Gary was asking about, it's just a traffic stop and you happen to be armed. So the next one is when police confront a suspect, they say in a loud voice, "Get down on the ground." In a home invasion, is this also advisable before taking action? Well, first let's address the police say in a loud voice, "Get down on the ground." That's not necessarily the case. Yes, it's something that you see a lot in the movies. Of course, some SWAT teams might be used to saying that. If you do any active shooter response training with law enforcement in your area, in your workplace, then you may have heard them say, well, we're going to come in and we're going to tell everybody to get down. Because what they're looking for is, if they come into a crowd, or if they're looking for one suspect inside of an area when they're doing a drug raid, for example, they don't want people running out of the house. They don't want people getting in their way. And in an active shooter situation, or any kind of a spree killer situation, of course, they're also probably looking for clear fields of fire. So if they come into that room and they say, or that hallway, "Get down, get down, get down," and all the good guys get down and the one person left standing is the bad guy, it's going to be much easier for them to deal directly with that threat with their firearms, or at least identify the person very quickly and very early that isn't cooperating with them. But that isn't to say that police are always going to give the instruction, "Get down on the ground," or "Get down" at all. They may say, "Stop moving." They may say, "Freeze." They may say, "Stay where you are." They may say, "Get down on the ground." They may say, "Show me your hands." A lot of different commands that may be appropriate in a moment. I think what's important to realize is that your verbal commands should also be appropriate in the moment. If you rehearse something like "Get down on the ground," but somebody's coming up the stairs as they're coming towards you, that "Get down on the ground" may not mean anything to them except turn around and go back down towards the first level. Well, if you're standing on the first level, or if you're worried about protecting somebody down on the first level of that house or that building, then "Get down on the ground" might be the wrong instruction to give them, because it conflicts. It tells them to do something that, even if they're following your orders and they've decided they don't want to be a bad guy anymore, they're trying to do what you want, trying not to get hurt, trying to show you that they want to cooperate and they no longer pose a threat. Well, now they're doing it, but to you, you might think, "Oh my gosh, they're coming towards me because I'm on the ground floor," or "They're going towards my family members who are down there on the ground floor, or down in the basement," or whatever it may be. So be careful about thinking ahead of time about what you're going to say, unless it is something universal. And it's really hard to be completely universal. Now, you can say, "I have a firearm and I'm going to defend myself." You can say, "Stop or I'll shoot," if someone's coming towards you. You can say, "Freeze," or "I have a firearm." You can say those kinds of things if, again, they are appropriate, and they may be more universally appropriate than "Get down on the ground." But you definitely want to think about the fact that communication is an important part of your response inside of a home defense scenario. Telling not only your family members what to do, communicating with the police with your 911 emergency call, but also possibly communicating with the people inside of your home. I always advise, if you know that the bad guy knows where you are, if he's trying to break down the door to this room, I'm 12 feet from the door, if I see that person trying to break this door down, they clearly know I'm in here, communicating with them and saying, "Hey, I've got a firearm. I will absolutely shoot you if you come in here. I feel like you pose a threat to me. You need to leave my house. The police are on the way." But if the bad guy is randomly moving around the house looking for stuff, or maybe randomly looking for people, and he doesn't know I'm in this room, then I don't want to call out to him and let him know where I am. I'd rather he continue to rummage through the house while the police are on the way, and maybe give me the opportunity to not have to deal with a direct physical conflict. Another question here is thoughts on the use of a warning shot. I don't support the use of a warning shot pretty much universally. I'm sure we can all come up with some scenario where we would say, okay, well, in that case and under those circumstances, maybe. But as a rule, a warning shot, the idea that you're going to discharge a lethal defensive tool to send a communicative message that you might shoot someone, or that you feel threatened, or that you're serious about defending yourself, it probably is reckless. There's a whole bunch of things that can go wrong in that scenario. You probably don't have a bullet trap that you can fire that round into. Of course, if you fire that round up in the air, it's got to come down somewhere. You fire it into any kind of a hard surface that isn't a bullet trap, and that bullet's going to skip off and go somewhere. You fire it into something that's not going to stop the bullet. It's going to go through that thing, and we aren't able to necessarily know what's going to be on the other side of that wall, or the trees, or whatever it is you're shooting into. A car. Bullets can certainly not only go through a car, but can ricochet off a car, or get deflected by a car and end up going off in a direction that you couldn't have predicted. So warning shots generally a bad idea, because you're using a lethal tool as a communication device. Quite frankly, if someone sees you with a gun and they are completely aware that you have that firearm, and they're continuing to act aggressively, continue to act like a threat, I don't know that you owe them any more warning than simply being there with a firearm and verbally being able to tell them, "Hey, seriously, stop, I feel threatened right now." So certainly giving them the benefit of yet another warning that could endanger you or other people or cause your firearm to malfunction because you aren't in a fully extended shooting platform behind the gun. You think about shooting off to the side and you get one of those unsupported platform or limp wrist type failures. Now you've really got a whole set of new problems that you can't solve with a firearm that's out of battery or has a malfunction of some kind. So I think it's really important to think about that before you think about firing a warning shot. Home surveillance is ordered. Where should I put it so that it isn't in plain view and won't get destroyed by a bad guy? And if this is the question I think I saw online, and I answered it briefly yesterday or today, it was also specifically talking about the hard drive where the video evidence was going to be stored, not just the video cameras themselves. Of course, putting a video camera up in your house or on the perimeter of your house is a great way to know who's coming, who's going, who's been there, to be able to monitor your house from one central location. If you have an app, nowadays most people will be able to get it on their smartphone, or maybe they'll have a tablet that comes with their security system that can be moved from room to room, or you have multiple areas you can watch the cameras from. I could be right here barricaded with that door secure and someone in the house with 2 or 3 cameras where I may be able to know exactly where that person or those people are inside the house without having to leave this room. Not only does that help me to remain safer, but it also gives me the opportunity to communicate that to law enforcement as they start to come in. Also, if I don't know who's in the house and I'm not sure that there is anyone that's a threat, the alarm's going off, the dog's barking, I barricade the family, we call 911, the cameras will also then allow me to see the law enforcement when they arrive, so that's great. But as far as locating the cameras somewhere where they won't be destroyed, again, the main thing you're worried about there is the hard drive, is the evidence that you want to be able to review afterwards, that you want to be able to identify the perpetrator, the police, if they escape, those kinds of things. So, and of course, property crimes, if they happen when you're not home, you want to make sure that the people aren't stealing the video evidence in the hard drive. So a lot of modern full-size gun safes, I know like the Canon safes that I have pass-throughs for cords and cables so that you can actually have a hard drive with vital home information inside of your large stand-up safe. The average breaking and entering guy isn't going to be stealing a large firearm safe from the home. So you can put your hard drives in there. You can also hide them in something like a tactical walls unit. You can hide them anywhere else in the house and sort of hide that cabling as well. And if that hard drive, as long as it's ventilated and it's going to keep running and it's hidden, then yeah, if they do happen to come in and they steal your valuables or they damage your home, even if it's something that requires you to defend yourself or defend other family members, acts of violence inside of the home, it'll be great to have that video evidence afterwards to be able to show to police so that they can catch the bad guy if he gets away. Your insurance company may want to be able to see the damage that was being done, the things that were being taken, and then of course ultimately if you end up in a criminal or civil trial, it's going to be great to have the evidence to show exactly what happened and why you had to do what you had to do. So protecting the cameras, placing the cameras well, and then also obviously protecting the evidence. The best thing to do really is to be able to get one of the systems that now through the internet, through Wi-Fi or through cellular connections are going to allow you to upload all that data right to an off-site server and be able to access it without having to worry about an actual physical device on your property. Let's see, what do we got here? How do you handle carrying around toddlers? At what age do you tell your children where the guns are stored and how to access them? Two-part. So how do I handle carrying around toddlers? Today I was, where were we? We were at the grocery store. I was at the grocery store with my 17-month-old, and she was, when I carry her in my strong hand, if I'm moving around and she happens to be on this side of my body, I carry appendix, it's not uncommon for her to sort of put her foot right on top of the back of the firearm holstered in front of my body, centerline carry. And so that answers that question. I don't carry differently because I'm carrying around my toddler. Now, if I were carrying off body, if I were carrying in a purse, if I were carrying in the diaper bag, if I were carrying in a backpack or my briefcase, now things really change when you have that 1.5, 2, 3, 4-year-old that isn't mature enough to handle the responsibility of access to a firearm, that isn't intellectually maybe even aware of what the firearm is, but starts to be strong enough and agile enough to get into a bag or to get a firearm out of a holster or to pull a trigger on a firearm, those kinds of things. Now it starts to be a real issue. So you obviously want to maintain awareness of your firearms and control your firearms from unauthorized access at all times. And when there's a toddler around, that's a really difficult age to do that. I've been through that before with my daughter, who's now 21, who just got her concealed carry permit last month, actually. And now I'm going through it again with my daughter that is a little over a year and a half old. And the way I do it this time is going to be a lot different than the way I did it then. You know, the tactical walls, safes, the quick access safes, the technology and the resources that I have today are far greater than they were back then. And what it really means isn't that I was reckless back then and we just got lucky. What it means now is that I'm going to have quicker access and more secure access to firearms without worrying as much about the baby and the toddler being able to get access to the firearm because of the magnetic locks, the RFID locks, the large format quick access safe type, button sequence locks. There's a lot of great options people have. But again, on body carry, I'm not going to do anything different. Off body carry, I do think it's a little different when you have the child that is of a young age. If we look at the second part of that question, when do you tell children about where the firearms are stored and how to access them? I think there's really two parts of that question also. When you tell them where the firearms are stored is when they intellectually are aware there are firearms in a home. When you've trusted them with that information or when they become aware of that information, I do think it's important that you have conversations that are very open and direct with your kids, with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that they know when or where the firearms are, that there are firearms in the house, that it's not things that they're supposed to have access to all the time, that they're not supposed to try to interact with those firearms without adult supervision, without you actually being involved, and that in order for you to have that conversation in an intellectually legitimate way, in a parentally parental way that has integrity, I do think the kids are going to know where the guns are. And then you have to have that respect and that appreciation for the fact that they aren't things that they're going to play with. I'm sure you have other things in your house that the kids know where they are. When I was growing up, it was matches, right? My grandparents smoked, my aunts and uncles smoked, my mom smoked off and on. It was there was matches as a kid. You weren't supposed to touch the matches, you weren't supposed to touch the lighters, but we knew where they were, and they were out in plain sight. With the firearm, we're not going to just be leaving them around on the table next to the ashtray, but at the same time, it's the same kind of conversation with the kids. It's the same kind of responsibility you have to instill. But only you can answer when your kids are ready intellectually and maturity-wise to handle that information in those conversations, but it's certainly something important to have. Now, as far as accessing them, how to access them, that's another level. Maybe that's going to be that late teenager, the high schooler that has been through some training, has gone to classes with you. I know for me personally, we tell people that their kids 16 and over can take their class with their permission, and kids 12 and older can attend the class with the parent there. Now, that's always subjective. I can always say, you know what, that kid's not ready. And certainly I've had 40-year-olds that weren't ready for the class. So chronological age is a tough one. It's hard to pin it down. It really comes down to intellectual capability, emotional and intellectual maturity, and then, of course, physical capabilities to handle the firearm, and emotional maturity to handle the reality of potentially taking a life in their defense or defense of other family members. So, again, it's very, very subjective, but I would imagine somewhere in high school is when most kids are going to be ready for that conversation and that responsibility. Somewhere in late elementary school or maybe early middle school is where kids are going to be ready for the conversation simply about where the guns are and why you have them in the house. And as toddlers, we really want to control access. It's a really, really important part of the responsibility that comes with the rights of firearms ownership. How do I convince my wife to carry her Glock on her belt instead of in her purse with her makeup and other stuff? Well, having been married 4 times, I understand why you think I'm an expert on wife advice. But the fact is, I don't know. I don't know how to tell your wife that that's a good idea. I can tell you how to have the conversation with anybody. And I just ran a women's only class for the Sure Shots group down in Austin. And these are the kinds of things that people talk about. And of course, it's much more likely that any random woman is going to think about carrying the gun in a purse than it is that any random guy is going to think about carrying the gun in a briefcase or a backpack. For guys, the briefcase or the backpack isn't really, for most guys, a constantly on the body when you're moving around in public kind of thing. But for most women, they do carry some sort of bag, purse, the diaper bag again with the small child. They've got some kind of bag with them all the time, and that's where they carry the makeup and the car keys and the who knows whatever else is in there, right? But the firearm, if it's going to be in a purse, I think first and foremost we have to accept that some women are going to carry the firearm in a purse. Some guys are going to carry the firearm in a backpack or in that briefcase, in that go bag that they may throw over their shoulder. And the firearm needs to be secure. It needs to be in its own pouch. It needs to be in its own separate compartment. It needs to have a dedicated holster that I would prefer a Kydex type holster, a hybrid type holster like the modules you can get from the Ojai modules you can get from Crossbreed holsters. They're great friends of mine. I've done holsters with them. One of the holster that we designed that most people know is the Evolved Belly Band, and that has a module that has a hook and loop fastener on the back. It's leather and Kydex, and it can go from the belly band to a hard point, to a quick access safe, and to inside of a bag, such as a purse. Even the bedside backup that we wouldn't use if we had a toddler. We don't use them now because we have toddlers in the house. So we have a toddler in the house. When I haven't had toddlers in the house, I have used the bedside backup with that module. Well, that module can fit very nicely inside of some of the dedicated pouches inside of purses as well. So it's not thinking about throwing a gun just randomly in the purse with the makeup. I would hope that your wife can see past that. And then at least get the gun into a dedicated containment inside of the purse and make sure that we're training to deploy the gun quickly and efficiently from the purse. Now, having said all that, it's much preferable that she were carrying the gun on the belt. The main issues that I hear most people, male or female, bring up about carrying the gun on the body, of course, are comfort and concealability. So first, if the gun's not going to be comfortable, if you can't wear the gun all day the way that you dress or the way that you will be dressed when you're carrying the gun, it's just not going to happen. I get that. So that, again, is going to be holster choice, a comfortable holster that fits your body well, that fits on your belt well, that attaches to the pants well, is going to be really important. As far as carryability and concealability, inside the waistband type carry is going to be a lot more concealable for many people. I carry centerline appendix. A lot of women find that they can carry centerline very well. If generally the waist size and the hip size are similar to or smaller than the shoulder size or the bust size, that measurement around the chest, then you're going to be able to wear a t-shirt or a blouse or something that comes down over the waist area and the hip area where that gun is going to be carried, especially if you can carry centerline. Now, on the other hand, if you're not shaped that way, then you're going to be thinking about carrying either maybe sort of a reverse cross draw, I call it, somewhere between the 2 o'clock and the 3 o'clock, or back at the 4 o'clock behind the point of the hip. Most women don't find it as convenient to carry it right on the 3 o'clock as men do, just because of the shape relative to the hip and the waist. The dimensions of the human body for the males allow hip side carry much more comfortably than most women can carry there. So you find them tending to push the gun up towards the front or push the gun back around the 4 o'clock, where many men carry also. So understanding that first, if it's going to be in the purse, it should be in a dedicated pouch, in a dedicated holster. Second, if it's going to be on the body, that you have to work with her to help her find a comfortable solution that is also going to be concealable with her body shape and her dress style. I think that's going to be really important. But hopefully that helps. I get a special note, another wife question. Shannon says, my wife will not carry when I carry. She's a better shot than me, and I feel she uses my position as husband to push the responsibility onto me. I've been taking her to the range and tell her about PDN, DVDs, but she shrugs it off. Help. All right, well, I don't know if she's watching right now or if you can, it's a live event, bring her the phone now. And hi, wife who defers to your husband, I'm talking to you. I don't know what to tell you except that you ultimately have to be prepared to defend yourself. I don't know if you guys have kids, but you have to be prepared to defend the kids as well. I understand the idea that, it's easy to push that responsibility off to someone else, right? There's plenty of people in our society who push that responsibility off to security guards and police officers, and plenty of us, sleep in our beds every night while our military soldiers and sailors and airmen, Marines are out around the not only this country but around the world protecting our way of life and protecting our interests in different places. But ultimately, if evil comes to visit you, you need to be prepared to defend yourself. And in a worst case scenario where you're with that person that you think is going to serve that protective responsibility in that protective position, imagine for a second that person gets taken out of the fight. And I'm not saying killed necessarily, but it could happen. But they just get taken out of the fight. They get distracted. They get knocked out. They get wounded. Or they got up to go to the bathroom while you guys were having dinner, and now you're the one that sees the threat, and your firearm is at home in the quick access safe, and your protector is in the restroom, or your protector is lying on the ground, and you're not able to utilize their firearm or utilize their expertise or their training to protect you. I think that is a tragedy in the true sense, that you have the training, that you have the tool, that you have the willingness and the mindset to defend yourself when your husband isn't there. But then when your husband is there, you think, I'll be okay. And it doesn't just go for husband and wives. I think that there's plenty of friends, brothers, husbands, daughters, moms, sons, things like that, where we kind of slough off the responsibility to, oh, you have more training, or you were in the military, so I'm going to let you take care of protecting us while the family goes out, or we go hang out somewhere. I know you've got this covered. I certainly, I get that a lot. I feel safe when I'm with you. I go, I might be distracted. I might be updating my Facebook status. You're responsible for yourself. And of course, I'm certainly willing to help out if I see the bad guy first, or if I need to. But the idea that you're going to slough off your own capability to protect yourself seems a little reckless. And I hope that maybe you rethink that, whoever you are. As a concealed carry instructor, what topics should receive more emphasis that have been historically been less important? I'm trying to think about how to answer that question. A couple different ways I think I can approach that question. First of all, as a concealed carry instructor, maybe what topics should receive more emphasis than have historically been less important in terms of skill development. I think we spend a whole heck of a lot of time on what I would consider target shooting, higher level precision shooting, traditionally, historically, at the entry level. We teach people stance and breath control and sight alignment and sight picture and precision trigger control and things like that, sort of higher level precision target shooting skills instead of just extend, touch, press. Get your body into an athletic position, square off to the threat, drive the gun out to your line of sight, touch the trigger and press the trigger relatively smoothly. I think that is where we should start. We shouldn't start with target shooting. We shouldn't start with the kinds of things you would teach someone if they were going into competition shooting, or the kinds of things we would teach someone if we wanted them to be able to shoot one whole groups at 20 yards. We should be shooting people to put multiple rounds into chests at 9 to 15 feet from the holster if they're carrying concealed, or from the ready position in the home or workplace from the start. And that means kinesthetically aligned shooting. You can take a look at Personal Defense Network. You can run the Google search with my name or combat focus shooting and take a look at how we get people started. There's some great videos and articles on personaldefensenetwork.com on getting new shooters started. So that's the first thing I would say, is emphasize rapid strings of fire from the holster or from the ready into chest-sized targets at across the room or around the car, inside the convenience store type distances. I think that's the first thing that should change from maybe that traditional historical approach 20 years ago, if that's still what you're doing. The second thing that I would say is in terms of topics, I don't think that the topics really have changed much. What we should have been teaching people 20 years ago is probably what we need to be teaching people today. I wouldn't get too pulled off from the everyday occurrence of people being victimized in their home or around their vehicle or around the convenience stores, the watering holes, the shopping areas, as Tom Gibbons calls them. I think that's what people need to be focused on. I don't think we need to get drawn off into, well, I'm going to worry more about terrorism. I'm going to worry more about spree attacks. I'm going to worry more about home invasions. I think the topics really, if people study the demographics of crime around them in their areas, the areas that they live, they're going to find that the issues that are sensationalized or maybe talked about the most in the media aren't really the things that they're most likely to encounter. So historically, I think we've gotten that right. It's defense of the individual, relatively close range, relatively short duration. Unfortunately, we've taught people target shooting to solve those problems traditionally. I think that's what we need. That's what needs to change the most. Let's see. Martin writes, I have 1 hour a week to train. After 20 weeks, I want to go from being a competitive shooter to a defensive shooter. How should I prioritize my training? Well, that kind of falls right in on the conversation I was just having with the concealed carry instructor. What are you working on? Now, of course, you got to go see the Worlds Collide videos. We're starting to put up the first series of Worlds Collide videos at personaldefensenetwork.com, but you can go to springfieldarmory.com and look at their blog and see the entire first season, if you will, of the Worlds Collide videos that I did with Rob Latham. And Rob, of course, is the most accomplished professional shooter, competitive shooter of our generation, of any generation, really. And he's still out there winning championships. And he and I have had a lot of fun talking about the differences between competitive shooting training or marksmanship training and defensive shooting skill development. And if you watch those videos, I think you'll see real quick how you could take those 12 or 13 videos we did in the first Worlds Collide series and turn those into a 20-week training program, especially if you already have a basis as a competitive shooter. As I've started to interact again more with the competitive shooters, and every time I do, there's great people in the competition shooting world, and this last year I've spent more time around several of them, and it never ceases to amaze some of the people on the defensive side that some of those competitive shooters don't carry guns every day. Some of them don't even have concealed carry permits. And these are national champions. These are some of the best shooters in the world that just don't approach guns as a defensive tool. For them, it's something completely different. And their games that they play with those guns are incredibly high levels of skill and incredibly high levels of dedication and work and effort that goes into that. Really have ultimately very little to do with the application of shooting skills in terms of defense. So it really does require a paradigm shift. Rob Latham and I are talking about doing some team classes, some 2-day classes where he approaches some of the mechanics and things that he is one of the best at in the world at teaching, and I approach the context, the application from my side, from the defensive shooting standpoint. And really letting people see how these things aren't diametrically opposed, but they're not interchangeable. The things we do in defensive shooting aren't going to help you win competitions. I can assure you of that. And the things that we do to win competitions aren't the best ways to prepare for a personal defense shooting situation. I think I've been saying that for years, and Rob Latham certainly echoes my words and my thoughts on that in that Worlds Collide series. So I'll send you there to get that 20-week training program, and post at the Personal Defense Network Facebook or social media anywhere in there, Twitter. Let us know how you're doing with that, because I think that's a journey that a lot of people probably need to take, and I applaud you for identifying it so obviously. This is normally when Shannon would say, don't forget to go to personaldefensenetwork.com and sign up for our free newsletter, The Wire. You'll get information in your inbox there about our new videos and articles that we post. You'll get sales. You'll get alerts for special opportunities to purchase some downloads and do online distance education training. And we just recently started sending out some discount codes for our courses. I'll be teaching the last week of courses this year down at my home range in St. Augustine, Florida, Ancient City Shooting Range, the 6th through the 10th next week. And while I'm down there, we'll be doing a lot of different things. We'll be doing home defense. We'll be doing our 2-person armed defense. We'll be doing our vehicle class, as well as the fundamentals of combat-focused shooting and the fundamentals of combat-focused carbine, our AR or semi-automatic kind of mid-caliber semi-automatic defensive shooting class with rifles. We'll probably be interacting with the Jedburgh target system a little bit during some of those classes. It's always great to be back down there at my home, my eastern headquarters down there in St. Augustine. So we just sent out some email blasts. If you're part of the Personal Defense Network in that region, we sent out email blasts with discount codes to sign up for those classes, and that's something we're going to be doing more and more in 2017. The response was great. So sign up for our newsletter, and you'll have the opportunity to train with me and maybe some of our other contributors at a discounted price as we get closer to the 2017 Personal Defense Network training tour. And what else is going on? That premium membership, of course, is going to get you some access to extra information at personaldefensenetwork.com, so consider that. We're always running sales for the people that have signed up for our free newsletter as well to join that at a low introductory rate. The retail rate is just under $40 to join our premium membership for a year. And also consider our gold membership. If you're already premium, upgrading to a gold membership means you're going to get discounts on our downloads, our distance education classes, and some other special features that will be really, really valuable coming into 2017, including access to that Personal Defense Network training tour live classes that will be exclusive in a couple of cases. So that's about it for the mid PDN Live commercial break. Let me go back to Shannon says, thank you for doing the shameless plugs for me. She knows I hate doing that stuff. Am I reconnected? It looked like it froze up there. All right, we're back. Is there an easier way to remember when to do a tactical reload other than counting rounds? Yes. Here's how you remember when to do a tactical reload. You do a tactical reload when you're done fighting. When you believe that you are not in a fight anymore, that's when you can top off your gun. I think it's an incredibly low value skill. I think it's almost silly to spend a lot of time worrying about doing your tactical reloads or top offs. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it's you're in a fight, you have to defend yourself with your firearm, and you have a lull is always the traditional word. There's a pause in this fight, and now you're going to access a fully loaded magazine. You're going to bring it up towards your firearm. You're going to drop the partial magazine out, insert the full magazine, make sure it's seated, and then retrieve the partial magazine and put it back in your pocket or back in your carriers, your pouch, whatever it is. And in some cases, you might, if you have the dexterity, retain that partial magazine in your hand and then insert the magazine. It's much easier to do with single stack guns, and this is a technique that goes back to when most people were in the training community were using single stack guns, 1911s primarily, and it's become a really important part of things like IDPA and other gun games. And it really doesn't have a lot of priority in the personal defense training world. I mean, you can't find very many situations where people have these mysterious pauses in their fight with multiple combatants or multiple engagements with a single combatant, and they need to top their gun off before they go into that next fight. This comes out of the military CQB environment. And if you think of something like a Green Beret, a SWAT guy, Navy SEALs, where they're in running gun battles through areas of cities, or they're going through a room, going room to room inside of a building or a house, or maybe a ship, anti-piracy kind of situation, where they have to fight a small fight here and get ready, line up with their guys, go into the next room, a small fight there, go into a couple more rooms, 3, 4, 5 rooms, or a hallway, or a couple buildings, or a couple blocks later, get into another fight. There are pauses and lulls in that battle, particularly because you're in part of a team. So you go into your room, and your room's clear because you had to maybe shoot someone there, and now there's some other guys in another room, and other guys in another room. Well, as you line up, before you go back into the hall, you go back into the stack, you go back into the next engagement, if you've had to fire 2, 3, 4, 5, 15 rounds in that room, of course, with your M4, AR-15 type firearm, whatever it may be, it doesn't make a lot of sense to go into the next room without topping your gun off. And it doesn't make sense to leave your magazine behind for somebody else to pick up, or not have it when you need it, an hour from now, or 2 hours, or 2 days before you get back to your resupply point. So in those situations, as armed professionals going from multiple engagements to multiple engagements as part of a team, this tactical reload obviously is incredibly fundamentally important. But for the average personal defense person, it's not a high-level skill. I'm much more interested in you shooting the slide lock and learning how to reload in an emergency when you're in the middle of a fight, because that's what a slide lock reload is. It's you're shooting. You need to keep shooting, but your gun's out of ammo. And if you carry a spare magazine, that's the more important reload to learn. So yeah, there's an easier way to know how to do the tactical reload than the counting rounds, because obviously I don't find any value in even the concept that you're going to be fighting someone, counting rounds, and then decide arbitrarily, hey, I can move to a safe place and top my gun off and then re-engage in the fight. That's kind of fantasy camp stuff. So maybe not worried so much about that and get into those slide lock reloads. That's going to be more important. And the way you make those more valuable is you randomize when they're going to occur. So you randomize your strings of fire in your training, and you randomize the amount of rounds loaded in any given magazine during your training, and then all of a sudden that counting rounds thing becomes completely irrelevant. Let's see. This is, do I have any advice for someone who's going into a law enforcement career? Yes, I do. First of all, good on you, because I know a lot of people would say, who've been in law enforcement or around law enforcement for a long time, that it's a challenging time to go into a law enforcement career. I first wore a badge in the mid-90s as a reserve deputy, and then went full-time for a little while in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And I've continued to be a reserve deputy most of the last 20, 25 years now, I guess. And I could serve now as a reserve deputy with the San Juan County Sheriff's Office here in Colorado. And I'm proud to do it. I do it primarily as a training officer. I provide training and other resources to the agency and other people in the region that join us for our training blocks just about every month when I'm not out on tour. And I do help out in a patrol capacity as well. But to think of going into a law enforcement career with the funding issues, the budget issues, the issues that come up socially, some of the pressures, the political pressures that law enforcement's under now, it's a challenging career. So again, I applaud anyone who stays in the law enforcement for the long haul, and also who considers going into serve their community and serve our way of life and protect people and do the best they can to keep evil at bay. So I applaud you doing that. I say that you have to keep all that stuff in mind, and that way you won't get burned out, you won't get disillusioned. So my number one piece of advice for you would be to talk to people who have some seniority, who have been in the jurisdiction that you're thinking of working, maybe with the agency that you're thinking of working. But be careful, if the first thing you do is you talk to someone and they're immediately negative, or they say, well, I would never do that, or if I were you, I wouldn't join, or I can't wait to get out, you know what? Turn them off, go talk to somebody else, because that person's not going to help you. You're making an important decision, and you're going to commit yourself to doing this. Talking to somebody that's going to tell you shouldn't do it, or that they don't want to do it, or they wish they hadn't done it, or they don't want to be doing it anymore, even if they're sort of tongue-in-cheek when they say it, not the best source of advice. Go find somebody who really enjoys the job, somebody who you know is excited to go serve every day. They're excited about the schools they get to go to. They're excited about special assignments. They're part of the special operations team, or they're maybe a supervisor. You know, they're looking for advancement. They're not just keeping their head under the radar and hoping they can get out with their retirement or with their pension. Somebody who really enjoys the job in your jurisdiction, in your region, go talk to them. They're going to be able to give you better advice than I can from afar. But I will tell you that from my perspective, you have to go in knowing where the pitfalls are. You have to go in knowing where the disillusionment can come up, and where the lack of maybe day-to-day excitement, or the lack of day-to-day challenge, or lack of day-to-day opportunity, especially early in your seniority, and then the lack of thanks, the lack of overt thank you for your service kind of thing that you're maybe hoping for, that you will get a charge out of every now and then. If you don't go in expecting all of that, when those things come up, they're a great positive boost for your ego and your career and your attitude and your mentality, and that includes internally in the agency as well as outside of the agency, in your community, in your family, in your peer group, on your shift, from your supervisor, from the other members of the city government or the county government. Just don't expect it. When it comes up, it'll be great, but sort of be prepared to do the job because you want to do the job. Get that drive from inside, and you're going to be a lot happier than you are if you're looking for it from outside. Let's see, does trigger pull pressure make a difference in a self-defense situation? It would seem like adrenaline kicks in, 4-8 pound, would it matter? Your thoughts? I think there's some truth to that. I think because we know that we're going to lose some tactile feedback, we're going to lose, we're going to have the blood flow from our extremities gets shunted during critical incident stress, so we have less sensitivity here. The difference between 4 and 8 pounds may not make that big a difference physically in terms of what you feel, but that distance that you're pulling and the resistance that you're pulling absolutely make a difference into a couple of things. They make a difference into your ability to be precise, right? So the more pressure you have to put in and the more distance that trigger has to travel, the more potential deviation that you're putting into the alignment of the gun throughout your trigger press. And then obviously the speed. The longer it takes you to pull the trigger, then the longer it takes you to fire that follow-up shot. Now in some cases, and in fact in many cases, it really doesn't matter, because managing recoil, controlling the gun itself, and getting the gun back into a position to fire is going to take far longer than pulling that trigger and resetting and letting the trigger go forward enough to reset and pull the trigger again. In some cases, for some of the best shooters, I would say, the top 25% of shooters, if you're using something like a double action only Beretta 92 series or a double action only USP type H&K, double action only SIG, those triggers are long enough and heavy enough that they're going to slow you down, and they're going to make you less capable than you would be with a mid-length and mid-pressure type trigger like a Glock or an M&P or a Springfield XD, something like that. I'm a big fan of that 4 to 5 pound trigger pull with that mid-length striker-fired gun, the M&P, the XD, the Glock. That's where I think the perfect defensive trigger exists. In the PD10, the new gun that we're coming out with the VIDI arms, that's my specs. It's what I think a defensive gun should be. We're right in that sweet spot, right around a 5 pound trigger. It's a relatively long first trigger if you compare it to the first trigger pull. If you compare it to the Glock and the XD and the M&P, it's on the longer edge of those three, and in a very short, crisp reset. And then a very nice smooth trigger pull. So I don't think a trigger pull has to be very light. I don't think you have to chase something like a 1911 single action type trigger. Something like the SIG and the Beretta, when they go to single action mode, when they're in double action single action mode, you end up with a very light, very crisp trigger, and that's why you need to decock that gun when you're done your string of fire as you go back into the ready position, because it's almost too light, too crisp for a lot of situations when you lose that tactile reference. If you think about taking up the slack on that long, heavy double action trigger pull, and then the next time you drive the gun out to engage maybe a second threat or another threat, that first threat that went behind cover and came back, you drive out with that single action shot and fire early. Not only are you not going to be potentially aligned properly, you may not also have a good platform behind the gun to manage that recoil well, and it sort of sets you up for failure for that whole string of fire. We see that a lot with people who rush that first shot after a reload or after re-engaging from behind cover. So I would say that you're right on a technical basis. The physiology, the neurology, the anatomy of under adrenal stress and critical incident stress, you're not going to notice the difference, but it still makes a difference. And trigger pull weight and pull length are something you should be considering in your defensive firearms. All right, I think I might do like 2 more here. So then I would have some closing thoughts from this week. We had, of course, a violent incident in Ohio, in Columbus, my old stomping grounds. I still am have a business interest there. I'm a co-owner of Endeavor, Krav Maga, and CrossFit, the defensive training center that we have there, along with a CrossFit gym for strength and conditioning and fitness. And I want to talk a little bit about what happened in Columbus and some of the work that the team at the gym and that we've been doing for a long time when it comes to spree killer response. But first, two more questions. How would you rate quick accessibility as a priority in your carry method? I think that quick accessibility is not the way I would term what I think is important. I would say that you have to be able to get your gun into play efficiently. Quick to me is a more subjective factor. I think efficiently is important. If you have 3 or 4 steps that you have to take to get your firearm into actions, in other words, if you have a bag that you're carrying, you have to orient the bag in a specific way, you have to open up a pouch, you have to get to the firearm, you have to defeat a retention device on the holstered firearm, you have to pull the firearm out, orient it towards a threat to be able to use it. That's a lot of steps, as opposed to reaching under a t-shirt, getting your hand on a gun, pulling it up and orienting it. It's just going to be easier in the sense of efficiency, the number of steps, the complexity, if you will. So I think lowering the complexity for how you get the gun into a defensive position, either your ready position, a retention shooting position, or an extended shooting position, from where or how you carry it, I think that's what you need to focus on, not necessarily the speed. So in other words, it's not about learning to clear your concealment garment faster or defeat your retention device faster, right? I think the pitfalls of that should be obvious. If you stand on a range and just keep trying to go faster, of course you're going to get a lower time, but who really cares when you're choreographed and rehearsed, just standing there seeing how fast you can draw to a first shot on a known target? It doesn't really mean much in the big picture when you're talking about tenths of a second or certainly hundredths or thousandths of a second. It's completely irrelevant to the processing time of walking through the mall and realizing you need to shoot and getting that gun into a position and orientation to where you can actually shoot. So I think it's important to remember that the chasing of hundredths on the range, maybe even the chasing of tenths on the range, isn't where quickness or efficiency comes from. It's how you set up your access to the gun and the efficiency with which you do that. I'll give you an example. If you're wearing 2 layers of clothing, if you've got a t-shirt and a polo shirt and a t-shirt under it, or a pullover or hoodie with a t-shirt under it, you want to try to think about the way those garments layer so that you can, in one motion, clear both garments, as opposed to maybe having the pullover or the untucked shirt out and then having another shirt underneath of it tucked over the gun. What that means, of course, is that you're going to have to lift the untucked garment and then untuck the tucked garment as a separate step and then get your hand on the gun, as opposed to untucking the garment that is underneath of the outer garment and being able to grab them both at the same time and move them one-handed or two-handed and go directly to the gun. So it's the number of steps and the complications that you put into the process that actually make you less efficient, as opposed to just trying to get faster with any given level of complexity. I hope that helps. The second one we're going to do is, this last question we're going to do, what do you recommend as the best personal defense ammo? There are so many options. I give out this, the guide, this is my standard guide, is you need a modern bonded hollow point round that is reliable in the firearm that you carry. That's the best answer I can give you. I can tell you that I have carried Winchester rounds more often than any other. I currently carry the W round in my XDS 4-inch, the WT round, the PDX-1 that became just the Defender line. It used to be PDX-1 Defender, now called the Defender line, is essentially it's the Ranger line of bullets. It's the same bullet that does incredibly well every year in the FBI tests, and it's chosen by so many law enforcement agencies around the world. The civilian version of that is the Defender load. The W load is actually a reduced velocity, reduced recoil load, which works great in the lighter, smaller subcompact guns that so many people carry. I saw an article today that the Motley Fool, I think it's mostly financial advice, but they did a article on the top 5 best-selling handguns based on their research. I think it was through Gunbroker. I saw it on Grant Cunningham's page, and every one of the guns was a small gun. The Glock 19 was the only mid-size, sort of normal, full-size carry gun in the mix. The rest of them were like the XDS, the Smith & Wesson Shield was in there. So it was all small guns, and that's obviously the trend is to go with smaller, even single-stack guns, as easier to carry. They have better concealability, better carryability, and in 9mm, some of those guns can be pretty pretty snappy. The Glock 43 is a pretty snappy little gun. So something like the W round, the reduced recoil round, is a great option because it's still performing the way we want it to perform through light or heavy clothing in the gelatin test, the same type of test that the FBI does to give their recommendations to law enforcement around the country. Those same types of tests are the things that you should be thinking about when you choose a defensive round. So if you can get around, that's one of the reasons we tell people to carry 9mm instead of a 40 caliber or a 10mm or a 45. If you can get around that has lower recoil and you can get fire your follow-up shots faster but still get the performance you're looking for, then that's the best round that you could be carrying, right, by default. So bonded modern hollow point that is reliable in your gun. I suggest shooting 100 rounds of that carry ammo, as expensive as it is. Shoot 100 rounds to your gun with 0 malfunctions, and you can call it reliable. And then, you know, personal preference, price, availability, you know, some of the features, some of the sales pitchy type stuff, whatever works for you. Some people will recommend that you carry whatever your local law enforcement carries. I think that's probably not a horrible idea if it runs well in your gun, of course. But, you know, you want to be careful of that. I think in the civil court, you know, people can bring up anything they want. The prosecutor can say anything you want. So in the aftermath, I would be hesitant to think that you're going to say, I'm carrying the same gun my local law enforcement carries, and think that suddenly makes you sort of immune from attack, because you could always get the, whoa, so you're a cop wannabe, you wanted to be just like the cops, and that's why you had to shoot this guy. So I think there's some pitfalls there. I think you should keep the politics out of your ammunition selection, go with something that is the modern technology, modern bonded hollow point that's reliable and works in your gun. So we'll go with that as our last question. It is now 7:58 on my clock here in Mountain Time. We started a couple minutes late, and I'll just end here with some thoughts on this spree killer active shooter situation that happened yesterday in my old hometown of Columbus, Ohio. You know, we've been doing a lot of work ever since Sandy Hook through ICE Training Company and other affiliated personal defense network, Endeavor, Krav Maga, and Fitness. We've got the active shooter response program and the school attacker response courses that we're running through our entities is incredibly important to me. You know, the evolution of active shooter response, and of course I would prefer that we would say spree killer response. I would prefer that the media didn't call every AK-47 or AR-15 type firearm an assault weapon, but this terminology is beyond, I think, the important parts of this conversation. So we know that most schools, most campuses are now referring to any spree killing or active violence, mass violence event as an active shooter to get everyone's attention, to get them mobilized, and get them to put whatever plan they have in place. We know that yesterday, the spree killer, the terrorist incident, was a guy who ran a car into a group of people and then pulled out a knife and started stabbing some of the people in that crowd. And the only shooting that was done by the good guy, a police officer at Ohio State University, who put the bad guy down. I believe it was with 3 rounds fired, 3 hits, and the bad guy was killed right there on the spot. So, but this situation, the spree killer situation, ever since when I was active in law enforcement, was during the era we had the Columbine event out here in Colorado. And that really changed the way law enforcement looked at active shooter response. It got us back to what law enforcement was back in my dad's day, which is if you've got the flashy red and blue lights and you've got the badge and kids are being shot, you go in there and do something about it. When I went through the police academy, it was the era of everybody's got a SWAT team. Every jurisdiction had a team. So, you know, patrol guys, you just form a perimeter, make sure no bad guys get out or new good guys go in harm's way. And when the professionals get there, the SWAT guys get there, they'll handle this shooting situation. Of course, there are times when that's the right thing to do, a barricade, a hostage situation, things like that. But for active shooting, it's not the way to go. For spree killing, someone's actively attacking a school and kids inside that school, it's not the way to go. We got to get in there and do something about it. And now, in the wake of Sandy Hook, we've evolved even what we tell the kids in the schools and people in their workplace, people in the public environment to do. And we no longer tell people to hide and hope. We don't tell people to lock down and just wait and hope that the professionals get there, whether it's the SWAT guys or the patrol guys or the security guys. We tell people to get away if they can, to evade. We tell them to barricade if they can't get away, make it harder for the bad guy to get to you. And then ultimately we tell people to fight, to respond as appropriate. If the bad guy gets into the room, gets in the area you are, you need to protect yourself. You all need to work together. Anybody in that room, in that space, need to fight the bad guy. And that information was put out by OSU in their first tweet. It said active shooter. Of course, we know that's just a term. They said active violence, active shooters going on, run, hide, fight. And they gave the location where this was happening. And they came under criticism. I could not believe, I guess I should know better by now, but I cannot believe, I'm forever disappointed in people inside of the gun community who let their politics get confused with their tactics, who let their politics get in the way of the tactics that they should be encouraging people to use to defend themselves and defend others in these worst case scenarios during these spree killer events. Going back to the school systems that got criticized for telling kids to bring cans to stack up in the back of the room, so that in the worst case scenario, the middle schoolers, the grade schoolers could pick up cans of soup and vegetables and throw them at the bad guy coming through the door. Guess what? The 10-year-old's not going to be carrying an AR. The 10-year-old's not going to be carrying a gun. And even if the teacher were armed, that's one person defending a room full of kids as opposed to an entire room full of kids working with an armed teacher to defend themselves. I think we get really short-sighted when we try to address our political agenda instead of empowering people to fight. So when a school that happens to have a gun-free campus like OSU says run, hide, fight, we need to be applauding them for moving in the right direction of empowering people to defend themselves, because the natural conclusion, the natural evolution suits our politics. It leads people to the conclusion, well, wait a minute, if I have to fight a guy with a gun, maybe I should have a gun. Maybe I should get trained. Maybe I should get equipped and be capable of carrying a gun. Maybe I should change that campus policy to one where I'm allowed to fight as efficiently as I possibly can. It doesn't help when people in the gun world say things like, well, the only way to stop a guy with a gun is to have a gun yourself. First of all, it's nonsense. It's completely not true. We know that it's not true. Plenty of unarmed people or people armed with things other than firearms have stopped determined and armed attackers, not only in spree killer events, but in terrorist events and many other crimes of violence. So it holds no logical sense, first of all. Second of all, it disempowers everyone who can't or won't or doesn't carry a gun. And we can write off people that can't. You can say, well, the people that can't should change their laws. Write off the people that won't. Well, they're not taking responsibility for themselves, and that's what they get. But the people that haven't had the opportunity to get the training, the people that haven't, maybe they have a gun, they're looking forward to getting training and being able to carry responsibly, but they don't feel like they're there yet. Maybe there's people in a situation where they have a gun and they have training, but they're not trained to a level where they feel confident pulling that gun out in that crowd and trying to defend themselves without endangering other people. There are all kinds of situations where a gun isn't the best tool, where a gun isn't the right answer, and where other answers are available to people when firearms aren't. So as a community that's all interested in the politics of advancing the freedom to carry firearms and the right to carry firearms, I think we need to remember why we advance that right. We advance that right so that people are capable of defending themselves. It's not carrying a gun for the sake of carrying a gun. It's not exercising a right just to exercise it. It's exercising a right so that we can meet our responsibility to defend ourselves, and we should be encouraging everyone to defend themselves regardless of whether they have a gun or not, and empowering them to do it in as many ways as possible, just the way that OSU did, despite the fact that they're a gun-free campus. They encouraged the faculty and staff and the people visiting that campus to fight if they had to, and I applaud them for doing that. And I think that kind of attitude is what eventually leads to a change in firearms policies and a change in our whole culture, where we're teaching kids not to turn the other cheek, not to let the bully get away with it, but actually to stand up for themselves, to fight, to defend one another, to defend things they care about, people they care about, and the way of life that they care about. And that's what will expand our firearms rights in the long term and change a lot of minds in the American middle ground on firearms. So that's my little bit of political rant, but to remind people not to let their politics get in the way of their tactics. We need to be teaching people to defend themselves. Spree killer or personal defense, home invasion, workplace violence, whatever it is, sexual assault. We need to be empowering people, not disempowering them. So for more information on that, active shooter response, spree killer response, armed defense, unarmed defense, improvised defensive tools, head over to personaldefensenetwork.com. Sign up for the free newsletter. Check out the free videos and articles we've got. Thank you all very much for joining me. There's been a whole bunch of great comments. There's been a whole bunch of great questions that I just, rather than try to keep up with all that down there, I really wanted to engage you guys like we normally do. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I think December 22nd is our next PDN Live, and that's going to be the traditional through the Google chat and the YouTube, and then we'll get it posted to our blog. We should be able to post this video in full also through our YouTube channel, Personal Defense Net, and at the website as well. Share it with people. Let people see it, especially if there's something in there you think appeals to them, like women carrying on the body, not on the purse, beginner, someone transitioning from target shooting or competition shooting, transitioning over to defensive shooting, a new instructor. We had some of that topic addressed also. So I think there's a lot of really good stuff here. Share this with people you care about, people that you think might be interested. Thank you for watching tonight.